What's good, y'all? This is Blair Johnson with the B.A.T.S Records podcast, coming at you with another episode, which, by the way, drop Thursday mornings, where you stream your music and or podcasts. It's available on YouTube. Everything lives on the website, B.A.T.SRecordsPodcast.com. Make sure you check out the merch tab there and do a little shopping if you feel inclined to support the show. Keep tabs on what's happening with B.A.T.S Records Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And the podcast itself is an examination into the life of the guest, as well as a peek at some of their favorite music. Episodes drop weekly. If you want to be on one, B.A.T.S Records Podcast at gmail.com is the way to get in touch with me. I believe as of this very moment, we are in Pride Month, but in the department of choosing months to celebrate certain human elements, I wanted to take this opportunity to say that every month could be Pride Month, but every month could also be Mental Health Awareness Month. And if you or someone you know is struggling, please consider reaching out to a friend or loved one. If you don't have one of those, you can reach out to me. Same email address as if you were interested in being a guest, B.A.T.SRecordsPodcast at gmail.com. If you were to drop me a line, I would do my best to help you find the support and or resources necessary to get you through what you're going through at the moment. So keep that in mind. Folks are dealing with stuff, and be kind. I'd also like to say thanks to everyone that has supported the show up till now, be it via social media likes or subscriptions, or being guests or sharing, all of it. Many thanks. This has been a wonderful ride. Never really have my finger on the pulse of when said ride will end, but it's been a blast and a learning experience, and I'm grateful. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoy the show. We're hanging out, B.A.T.S Records Podcast. Philip Clark, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure.
And so what I was able to glean from your Facebook page, former lead singer of B.A.T.S,
yeah,
and Johnny Switchblade, but current lead singer of the Dead Laughter. Is that accurate? Or
so the Dead Laughter, oh man, it was such a good idea too. It was going to be like goth with saxophones.
Ooh.
So think like Killing Joke, The Damned.
Yep.
So I really love having saxophone and post-punk music. Everyone calls it post-punk music, and if you call it goth music, you get that glare. But you know, growing up in the 90s, you know, it was always, you know, goth music to me.
Sure.
Goth rock. But I'll take post-punk, you
Hey,
know.
I mean, some people are obsessed with putting things under the appropriate umbrella, and some people are like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
It's my music.
But I got really into, I accidentally became a huge fan of the Psychedelic Furs.
Okay.
Because there was a band called She Wants Revenge. Mm-hmm. And I saw they were playing a show for $10. They're opening for the Psychedelic Furs. I thought, well, screw it, I'll go see them. Been wanting to see them, and if the Psychedelic Furs are good, I'll stick around. They blew me away.
Nice.
They humbled me. I couldn't believe how good they were. And then a few years later, when I was dating my wife, I made her go. And she's like, why are you dragging me to this? I'm like, you'll see. And she's like, man, they're fantastic.
Oh, nice.
So I became a big fan of them.
Cool.
And I love that raspy voice, that saxophone.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Dead Laughter kind of fell apart. The sax player moved to drums, and then the sax player had a child and left.
Okay.
And to be fair, he was a little bit more mature than I am.
Oh.
And I respect him. He's a good dude, but I give people a hard time.
Sure.
I give people shit if I like them.
Yeah.
And there was a few times I had too many beers and I crossed a few boundaries picking on people, but they were people I knew, friends of mine,
Yeah.
If I cross a boundary, they let me know and I apologize, but I'm just really playful with people.
Sure.
I had all sisters growing up. So like,
same.
Yeah. So you have that weird, like, how are men supposed to treat each other?
Yeah.
And especially because I'm a good 10 years younger than you are, 11 years younger than you. So you get it going up with the toxic masculinity you see in movies,
Yeah.
Makes me think of that scene in Gran Torino. Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite movie he's done.
What scene?
Okay, the scene where he's in the barbershop and he's teaching that kid how to talk shit to other dudes.
You fucking prick. The thing is, okay, I'm glad you brought that up. I love that movie. I've watched more reaction videos on YouTube than I care to admit on that movie. I have never understood that scene because he comes in and he says the stuff and then he sends them back out and he comes back in and to me he basically says the same thing and they're like, good job that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, how is it different from the first time?
Because the kid didn't pay his dues yet. You can do the exact same thing as someone else and still get your balls busted.
Sure. Okay.
And I've been privy to that. I am not a religious person because I grew up in a toxic religious environment. And you know what? My wife's a Christian. She's from LA. And she moved out here and she's like, man, a lot of people are really rude to me, and then they give me tax-exempt forms for churches. Like, they're missing the point. And I'm like, yeah. I had a church that told me who to vote for.
She's not exaggerating when she says a lot of people are rude to me.
Yeah. Retail. She works in retail, and so do I.
Okay.
But she feels that a lot of people that are rude to her will then in the transaction hand her church tax exempt forms, and she's like, "Oh, they're not representing.
They are coming from the church.
Yes,
she's not. I thought you meant they were being rude to her because she's from a church.
No.
Okay.
And then if you think of West Coast Christianity, it's a little bit more like hippie, like a little bit more like and which is cool. I can see some of that stuff. It's all philosophy, know, and I think there's good things to learn from different beliefs everywhere.
Yeah.
Wisdom's wisdom. I think man can corrupt a good idea very quickly. Yep. And I mean, there's so many things that I feel good intentions that have been corrupted by, greedy men.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this in my brain has to do with all the times they had us read dystopian novels in school.
Such as
1984, which was a very hard read. Animal Farm. I prefer Fahrenheit 451. That's one of my all-time top 5 favorite books ever. It's brilliant. We wrote a punk song about it called Death to the Dreamers.
Nice. So I think you mentioned at some point that you had also hosted an online radio show.
Yeah.
In the past. Is that right?
About 12 years ago, well, I'd say it was 2008. I was on darksideradio.com and I went as DJ Phil _evil, DJ Phil Evil.
Okay.
And I did a show called Watching the Shadows.
Nice.
Now, I'm a goth kid through and through.
Yeah.
But I'm raised on all sorts of different music, and I love all sorts of different music. And one of my friends had worked at Best Buy, worked in the CD section, and he came in. He's wearing a David Bowie Diamond Dog shirt.
Nice.
And I love that album. I love Bowie. And I was like, oh, well, here's my business card. I have a show. And he tuned in wanting to hear, horrible, typical goth music. And turns out that night was ska night.
Oh.
And so it wasn't just reggae. It was reggae. I think he tuned in and I was playing Call Me Out by Paul Simon from the Graceland album.
Sure.
Because I love that album.
Yeah.
Now, there's downside with that because I guess when the album came out, he took all the credit and didn't give enough credit to Black Lady. Was it?
More than one artist, I think.
What's the name of that band? Blacksmith Lady Mombasa or something. I haven't quite gotten
there was some
to
hubbub.
them yet. Yeah. And I played Vampire Weekend. Their first album's one of the best things I've heard.
Okay.
And he was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm expanding people's horizons. So every week, people like me are tuning in and they're hearing, 3 hours of a specific genre.
Uh-huh.
And probably stuff they don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm really wanting to get people into stuff that's out of left field.
Sure.
I've been getting into, they have an album called Expensive Shit. It's Afrobeat. I'm going to have to look it up.
That's cool. But so you're working at Best Buy and this customer comes in and you give him your card and tell him to tune in. He calls you up and
yeah.
But everything was fine. There was no consequences for you playing stuff out of.
No. Fela Kuti. Have you ever heard of him? Oh, he's amazing. Nigerian musician.
Okay.
And he did this album called Expensive Shit. He was kind of like a Bob Marley figure where he was really political in the Nigerian music scene in the 70s. And they wanted to set him up to arrest him. So they planted marijuana like in his house. He knew they were coming to get him, so he ate it all.
Oh.
When he's in jail, he passes it through his system. And then there's the evidence, and he talks his cellmate into taking the credit for it.
Wow.
So he gets out of it scot-free and wrote this album. It's only like 2 tracks. It's called Expensive Shit.
Nice.
And
2
it's
tracks, huh?
Fantastic. The song Expensive Shit's like 20 minutes long.
Cool.
And it blew my mind when I heard it.
Cool. So online radio show host, and also I think you mentioned that at one point you had a podcast of your own.
Yeah. So I get bored and I just do stuff, I've always wanted to lead a life worth reading about.
Okay.
So if there's something I want to do, I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I started a podcast with one of the guys that was in The Dead Laughter.
Okay.
And it was called That Can't Be the End.
Interesting.
And it was us discussing movies that had bad or vague endings.
I like it. How many episodes deep did you guys get?
Probably about 12.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
We talked about Midsummer.
Nice.
We talked about The Adjustment Bureau, which is kind of a bad movie. We talked about just all kinds of horror movies that should have had better endings. A lot of the times you get that cop-out ending where it was all a dream or something like that.
Yeah. Now, before we sat down, we were talking briefly about Mr. Zappa.
Yeah.
And
so one thing that's interesting is I'm a huge David Bowie fanatic.
Okay.
And I've heard people talk shit on David Bowie and go, "Oh, he was a terrible person." And I'm like, look, in the 70s especially, no one's hands were clean. The only person that wouldn't be canceled today is probably Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
He's the only person that I could think of that was moral enough and not on drugs that they could probably be like, there's nothing Frank Zappa's done that we can cancel.
Socially experimented with marijuana a time or two.
Yeah.
Is the extent of his.
Yeah.
We did love his Winstons, but can't blame him. Anyway, so the Mothers of Invention stuff is not for me. It's just, I get it. I respect it for what it is, but it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I'm not a terribly versed scholar in the 80s and 90s stuff that Frank did. So the 70s is my wheelhouse.
Okay.
And I would be remiss if I didn't encourage you gently or otherwise to give Joe's Garage a shot.
Okay, so I hear on that album there's a guitarist, Steve Vai. Is he on
Steve
that
Vai
album?
did. I want to say yes. I'm pretty sure yes, but I feel like every time I quote when Vai was with Zappa, I'm wrong. So
I used to make a lot of mix CDs, and
Okay.
I wanted to make a mix CD of songs that had guest musicians that blew up. You know, on the David Bowie Young Americans album, Luther Vandross was on that album.
Okay.
And on the Let's Dance album, it was Stevie Ray Vaughan
Nice.
playing guitar. So I would love to make a mix CD of just, oh, you didn't know this guy was on this song.
Yeah.
It was like Fame with John Lennon.
yeah. So Joe's Garage and Chic Your Booty. You've already listened to Apostrophe. Overnight Sensation kind of goes hand in hand with Apostrophe. So those three, and Joe's Garage is no short venture. It's a 3-act, very intricate story.
Okay.
Chic Your Booty is
Downloading it.
funny and political. And Overnight Sensation is a little more straightforward rock in the same vein as Apostrophe. But those are, I mean, I love everything he did in the 70s. But
Oh no, he's a genius.
Yeah.
And I think he's great, but I can't he's not always accessible to me.
no, he's not always accessible to everyone. And he came out of the womb pushing the envelope, I think.
Did you see that thing he did on TV back when he was young where he used a bike as a musical instrument?
Yeah.
That was really cool.
That's like maybe the earliest footage that exists of him, and he was on like a talk.
It was weird because he was wearing a suit.
Yeah.
But I thought it was cool. So like there's certain bands like I'm still trying to get into Sonic Youth.
Okay. I've never really tried,
So
but that's a lot closer to your neighborhood than mine.
yeah.
So,
oh man, dude, and Miles Davis.
Yeah.
I found this album on a drunken excursion out in Lawrence, and I had to have it. And I have a mid-60s, I think, mono pressing. I paid like $60 for it.
man. So you told me where you're from, and I've already forgotten. Not Mobile, somewhere in Texas.
No. Well, my family is from Mesquite, Texas.
Mesquite, Texas.
My
Okay.
grandmother is a first-generation American. Her parents came here in the late 20s from Germany.
Okay. And then my sisterhood is 3 younger, so I'm the oldest of 4. Where are you in the
I'm the youngest of 4.
youngest of 4?
And I
Okay.
have 3 older sisters.
Okay.
And man, they really helped me carve out music taste.
Cool.
Because, they were really into what the young kids would call butt rock.
Okay.
And it was a lot of Journey, Bon Jovi, even, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, Aerosmith. Aerosmith was my favorite band until I was 15.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. I mean, I came online with. I mean, I knew Dream On, but Permanent Vacation in '87.
Oh yeah, and Pump
in '89.
And Get a Grip.
Yeah, Get a Grip. I was checked out, but for the duration of that, 87, 89, I went back and got everything leading up, including Done with Mirrors. Their sort of rock bottom drug. We got to get it together, and it was just dog shit.
So they did an album. I forget what it was, but it had a song called Kings and Queens.
Oh my god, yeah.
And I had
Guillotines.
Yeah. Man, that's
Taking Lives Tonight.
such a good song.
They have. I actually made a playlist for my next door neighbor of all of the old Aerosmith songs that rock like that, and that is definitely on the list. And I sent it to him. I was so proud. I worked so hard. And he was like, didn't really make me want to like get up and shake my butt. And I was like, well, yeah, but they rock.
The heartbreaking part of that story is that he didn't make you a playlist back.
Well,
do you remember mixtape trading
course.
and mix CD trading?
I mean, I never really did the mix CD thing because I was a tape holdout for way too long, and still have like 700 of them. But so Mesquite, Texas, youngest of four. How did mom and dad meet? Do you know?
Ooh, so my mom went to a military dance. It was a dance, and there's a military school involved, and my father was there. And the girl, I think my mom maybe got blown off for a date or something, and the girl said, "Hey, come to this dance, and we'll meet boys." And my mom went, and the girl's like, "Oh, you anything you want? What do you want?" And she's like, "I want that boy there." And I'm talking about, this is she was born in 1950, so it was like 1967.
Okay.
And she was like, "Bring me that one."
To go, please.
Yeah, yeah. And I think my dad, he met her at that dance, and I think on their first date, he had to cancel another date with another woman.
Okay.
And I think that's funny. But
yeah.
It was some story like that.
Interesting.
Now, my mom has always been a very precious moments, Hallmark Channel mom.
Interesting.
But the stories of her being wild in her youth they're like very treasured by me.
Yeah.
And she told me, I remember the first time I heard A Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin. I was so blown away. I sat down after hearing that, and I wrote your father a letter. He had been drafted to Vietnam. And I said, "You need to hear the song Whole Lot of Love. This band is going to change the face of rock and roll." And I'm like, how have you not told me this story before? Like,
right?
Fucking
Mom.
Seriously. She loves Celine Dion. She has a Michael Bublé album. No, not Michael Bublé. Josh Groban. She has a Josh Groban CD.
Funny.
And she loves like Bette Midler and Barbara Streisand and all that. But she used to be into like Led Zeppelin and shit.
Sure.
And
did they put on music for listening in the home when you all were young, or?
Not really.
Okay.
My dad was my best friend and at the same time the worst father.
Okay.
He would.
That's a rough combo.
Yeah.
For folks that say you're not supposed to be your kids' friends, you're supposed to be their parents.
My mother and father were so different because my mother felt when you had children, your fun was over. You take care of them, and that's your job. And my father was like, well, I can do both, right? And it was interesting, but he would get really drunk on his days off, and he would play guitar for me.
Oh.
And well, for himself, but I would be near, and I remember that I didn't know these were big songs.
Okay.
But he would play American Pie.
Okay.
And as a child of like
sit
4,
8.5 minutes of that.
it was great.
Nice.
Until he'd have to stop to, take a drag off his cigarette.
Right.
But it was so visual with all of the characters in the song that that definitely sparked my love for songwriting and for storytelling.
Cool.
Because it was like he had a guitar, but it was a vehicle for him to tell a story.
Nice.
And so, of course, I love, Bob Dylan, Tangled Up in Blue.
Sure.
And I have a tradition that people hate, and because they hate it, I love it more. Every Thanksgiving, I have to play Alice's Restaurant by Arlo Guthrie.
Okay.
And every time I would go to Thanksgiving, they would play it in the car. It would come on. Alice's Restaurant. Every Thanksgiving would come on the radio. I'd always hear they'd play it like once an hour almost.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know. It was the classic rock station, but they would play it often enough to where every Thanksgiving it would come on.
Yeah.
when I was in the car.
Okay.
And I have a tradition where I have to listen. I have it on vinyl. I have to listen to it, and I'll put it on.
Nice.
My wife hates it. And I'll make people listen to it with me. And I feel everyone should hear the song. It's great.
Sure.
And
So where does you did as you mentioned?
Yeah.
Send me a picture of your collection.
Yeah.
Where and when does your collection begin? Because for me, it's like, and I think this is the case for most. There's typically some music in the home, when you're born. A handful of CDs, a couple of records, or maybe a lot.
Yeah.
But eventually, you sort of pivot and begin to seek out your own stuff. And so oftentimes, like
It was music in the car.
on the radio.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would play old music in the car, and I would hear stuff, and it would be stuff from left field. How do you, when you hear Bohemian Rhapsody and you're a child and it's in the car and you're trying to piece it together, but this is something that, your parents have heard 1,000 times.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that, and you start to go, okay, well, I like this, I don't like this, I like this,
Sure, but is there, outside of listening to stuff with your folks in the car or at home or whatever, is there an album, not necessarily from your list, that you either first fell in love with independent of your parents, or maybe bought with your own money for the first time, or borrowed from a buddy? Any album that stands out from the early days?
I don't know, because then that begs the question, where did I start my own musical identity?
Interesting. Yeah.
Listening to a lot of 98.9 The Rock growing up. And then, I'm sorry, but there's this whole post-grunge movement. People like Nickelback and people like Creed and Puddle of Mud that want to have that sound, but they don't want to do the drugs. And I'm not saying that they should, but I'm just saying
It might help.
Man, I don't think you could have written Pretty Noose or Burden in My Hand or Black Hole Sun without being on drugs.
Right.
It's what you like Bill Hicks, I'm sure. Comedian.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Social satirist and American treasure.
Yeah.
And he had said, if you're against people doing drugs, go home, take every great American album you have out of your collection and toss it, because all those people were real fucked up on drugs. Yeah. Drugs has its place, and it's for musicians in college.
How about any live music shows when you were young, or first?
First one was my oldest sister took me to see Monster Magnet opening for Aerosmith at Sandstone 1998 9 Lives tour.
Cool. That's a great one.
Yeah. And we were trying to buy tickets from scalpers, so we missed the first half of the show.
Oh, dang.
But I don't know. I hear a lot of people say bad stuff about Steven Tyler, but he puts on a good show.
My first, I saw, which was first? I know I saw Aerosmith. That might not be. I'm mixing memories, but I definitely saw Aerosmith at some. I swear I saw him for the Pump tour, and it was a great show.
Yeah,
and he always. I mean, that's what he's known for. Putting on a great show. Yeah. Toxic Twins.
Even if he's... Sorry. I've been drinking beers a bit tonight, so
You're good.
I'm going to be a little burpy. But his vocal range is amazing. Okay, so do you follow when people do lists of the musicians, vocalists with the best vocal range?
Not really.
So I follow that because I'm a vocalist, and I'm not a singer. I'm a vocalist.
Yeah.
I'm a songwriter that sings.
Sure. Yeah.
They always say the two best are Axl Rose.
Nice.
Because he can hit highs like Mariah Carey and lows like Barry White. But the guy that always tops him a little bit is Mike Patton.
Faith No More.
Faith No More, Tomahawk, Phantomus, Peeping Tom. Oh God, I know someone's yelling at the radio because we're missing something. But he's
Chris Cornell.
genius.
You got to throw Chris Cornell in the mix for range.
Well, he was great for doing one takes in the studio.
Okay.
Like he could. I read something that said back in his day he didn't have like Pro Tools to clean up his vocals. He'd have to, and it's so hard to record a great take.
Yeah.
So my worst issue with music is remembering lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
So I have dyscalculia, which is a numerical form of dyslexia.
Interesting.
And it's if you give me a series of numbers, I will remember the numbers, but not their order. They'll move around. So if you read me your phone number, I would have the numbers, but not the placement. And I wonder,
Fascinating.
Yeah, I wonder if that manifests in different ways in my brain. Either that or if I have a separate form of dyslexia. Now,
Sure.
I always had a high level of reading comprehension and reading level. I was reading John Grisham in 5th grade.
Okay.
Like I could understand and comprehend that.
Sure.
And it wasn't that difficult, you know. But I can't remember lyrics. Even my favorite songs, can't remember lyrics.
Wow.
At this point, the only songs I know all the lyrics to are probably songs I've written.
Sure.
And when I first started out, to get over my stage fright, I had cue cards with my lyrics on it, because I honestly believe it's not how you look in punk rock. It's what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And people turn their backs on me for a bit. You know what? More power to them. You know, but they really missed performances of some really good songs and a lot of heart, you know. I want to be in a band where I'm the worst musician.
Interesting that you say that. So Dad had a guitar, you're a vocalist.
Yeah.
Has there been any instrumentation for you ever, or?
Oh, I play a little bit of bass,
Okay.
but I'm kind of off rhythm.
Okay.
But I still, I love to play bass guitar, and I taught myself how to play bass guitar from getting the tabs from the Pixies Doolittle album.
Very nice.
Which is one of my all-time favorite albums ever. I absolutely love the Pixies. I wish Kim Deal would get back in the band. I couldn't get into the Breeders. I tried. No. And I have a lot of friends that are like, man, it's so similar to the Pixies. I don't know. I can't get it.
Another person that I thought about goes by Dr. 47, Danny.
Oh, I know of him.
Okay.
So I haven't met him, but I've seen what he's done online, and anytime I see him post anything, whether it's a struggle, I feel for him in his struggle. If he has a victory, I'm cheering him on from afar. I don't really know him, but he's I
met him once. And it was to do an episode, and he also gave me a large list. And there was a lot of crossover between his list and yours. And one of the records on his list was Last Splash. And that's where I was like, oh, getting ready for that. I was like, oh my God, how many times have I forgotten that Kim Deal was the bassist in the Pixies, obviously before the Breeders.
She might be my favorite bass player.
She's pretty rad.
It's so playing an instrument and singing is difficult.
Bro, at the same time?
Oh my God. But also singing with no instrument. If you go back to early videos of my first band, Johnny Switchblade, I have my right arm behind my back at the bend the whole time because I'm holding it, and I don't know what to do with this arm.
Oh.
So it's funny because there's so many pictures.
Yeah.
And then also, I don't like to have a mic stand. I want to have a long mic cord, and I'll kind of wrap it around my hand, and I'll walk. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
I'll walk into the crowd. I'll climb on stage. I'll stand over here. I want a long cord.
Sure.
And I just thought it was like a weird coping thing that I did. And one time, there's a really great local 2-piece garage rock band called Mr. and the Mrs.
Okay.
And the guy from that band, Ben Hughes, he was the sound guy when I was playing a show at, it's changed names so many times. Right now it's Woody's. And it used to be Vandals Punk Rock Club, Black and Gold Tavern, the Newsroom.
Okay. Now I know. Now you're talking my age.
Yeah.
Newsroom.
Apparently, the Newsroom, and I wasn't cool enough to be invited, but the Newsroom was where you went to drink underage.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
I thought there was all kind. That might ring a bell. But also, I think there was some partying going on there for a good little bit, but nevertheless.
I mean, drugs aren't really my thing, which is funny because I have a hilarious story about tripping on mushrooms to Kinda Blue by Miles Davis that I've saved for this podcast.
Well, let's so we're going to roll through your list.
Okay,
thank you for getting it to me.
I'm sorry it was so long-winded.
It's okay.
It was just stuff I thought of, and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to send it to you, and if there's things that you're excited about, we'll talk about.
I'll tell you what.
But I also have an hour and a half here, so I mean, I can go on a little bit longer if you want, or I can come back for a part 2.
So a number of times, somebody mid-interview, what about you? I'm like, what do you mean? What about, like, what are some of your favorite records? And I'm like, dude, I can't. And so eventually, after that got asked enough times, I was like, I should put pen to paper with this.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, top five.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be a top 10. And then
it
two
was-
seconds later, it's going to have to be top 20. And then I'm like, this is like 26 or 27 now. Because I'm like, well, I can't put this one on here without this one.
Oh, dude, you have to break it down by genre.
Well, we're going to roll through it chronologically in release order. So we'll start with Kind of Blue.
Fuck yeah.
Which is 1959, 30 of 63 for Mr. Davis. 5 tracks, 45 minutes. Funny story about tripping on mushrooms.
Yeah, so I wanted to get into Miles Davis, and someone told me to check out Kind of Blue. And I looked it up, and it reminded me of the album Pornography by The Cure.
Okay,
that album, there's no happy songs. They pick a theme, and they stick with it. And the whole thing sounds like something you could listen to during a rainstorm.
Oh, I like that.
And so listening to Kind of Blue, I was like, I don't really know how to feel about this, but it all kind of touches on this vibe, and I really dig it. Now, I don't really like instrumental music. I'm always waiting for the vocals and the lyrics to kick in, right?
Yeah.
So one time there was a storm going on. I had Kind of Blue playing on YouTube. My wife came in and she goes, "You would have given me 10 guesses. I never would have guessed you would have come home and walked in on you listening to Miles Davis." And I'm like, I'm always trying to evolve.
Well, we don't need to talk numbers specifically, but 99.9% of your list came as one message.
Yeah.
And I poured through it, and then Kind of Blue came in, and I was like, did he mean to send that to me? This doesn't fit here at all.
Oh, I'm always, I want to be well-rounded.
Sure.
Jazz and hip hop are kind of hard for me to get into. I'm very picky about both.
Yep.
My favorite jazz would be Nina Simone.
Okay.
And Ella Fitzgerald.
Hey.
I really like those two.
Neither are slouches.
Yeah. But with Miles Davis, the other day, my wife was out of town, and I'm hanging out, and my friend's like, "You want to do mushrooms?" I'm like, "Yeah." And
Not your first time.
no.
Okay.
Probably my third time.
Okay.
First time I microdosed when I was in high school. Second time was on the 1-year anniversary of my father's death.
Okay.
I want to be a little bit of a madman.
Sure.
And, I was dating a girl, and she wanted to come over and she wanted to bang one out and take mushrooms, and we did it in the wrong order. We took mushrooms first, and then it goes to getting carnal, and I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen. My brain is not there, because the idea of intimacy such as that while you're tripping is too primal. Like your brain's split in half, and it's nothing animalistic in there. It's all just like puzzles and sand.
Yeah.
But so
I had a girl freshman year of college. we would hang out. We were into LSD, and
I've never done it because I've had mental health issues,
Sure.
and I thought that if I got a bad dose, it would make things worse.
Yeah.
I knew someone that had a bad acid trip for 6 months.
yikes.
Yeah.
Well, I like only the positive acid stories, so I'm going to cut that line out. No,
Go
I'm
for
kidding.
it.
But she, neither one of us were not going to school in the towns that we're from. So on weekends, we would sometimes we'd go to her. So anyway, she went home one weekend and came back with some really nice orange sunshine doses, and we each had one. And I, on a good trip, would get, and this is many years ago, would get into weird sensations with my body, like in this particular moment in a dorm room, I was crawling along the backside of a couch with my side and my back like a cat might, because it felt incredible.
Yeah.
So she went to mimic doing that. And at one point we both pivoted and wound up face to face, and she stuck her tongue in my mouth, and I was like, what is that? Like, what is, oh, really? And it was sort of like, that doesn't fit right now, but in a few hours, let's circle back anyway.
Yeah.
So your friend says, do you want to have some mushrooms? This is your third go.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah. And I invite one of my friends over who's a little bit more straight-laced country boy, and he comes over and he's like, well, what are we doing? And I said, all right, I didn't tell you, but I got a bunch of mushrooms, and I'm going to eat them, and I'm going to see what happens. Do you want to do them? They're free. And he's like, no. And I'm like, all right, well, you're going to be watch guard and making sure nothing goes wrong then. You're babysitter.
That's not a 15-minute assignment, watch guard. That's like, I hope the whole day is clear.
Well, I sprung it on him because, why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Like, not. I'm kind of wild, and and he's like, "You're taking mushrooms," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Your wife went out of town to go to Scotland," and I said, "Yeah," and he said, "She's been gone 6 hours." And I said, I've been waiting for you.
That's why today is the day. Yeah.
And he's like, she's been gone 6 hours. And I'm like, and you couldn't have gotten here sooner. I'm going to eat these mushrooms. And then someone's like, oh, it works better if you take like cannabis with it. Or orange juice. But, and I remembered I had a 10 milligram edible.
Okay.
So I, on top of like maybe 3 grams of penis envy mushrooms, I took a 10 gram edible. I don't remember. It was a big one. And my friend turned to me and he's like, that's a bad idea. And I'm like, nah, it'll be fine.
Was it?
Oh, it was great.
Okay.
So we have a tablecloth that's like stripes and flowers on it. And they were like coming up out of the table and kind of moving and dancing.
So there's 3 of you, but only you.
Oh,
and
no,
one
there
friend.
was my brother-in-law, my best friend. They're both my roommates. And then a friend I just met that day. And then his friend, which was someone I went to high school with. And then my buddy from work.
So this is 6 people, and you're the only one that ate mushrooms?
No.
Oh, okay.
My friend was the only one not taking mushrooms.
Oh, gotcha.
We were all tripping, and I had just made salsa, and like I was looking at that salsa and I was stirring it with a big fucking spoon, and it was beautiful. All the colors, all the textures, it was great. My friend started peeking, and I was like, watch this, and I'm stirring this salsa. Well, my brother-in-law puts on Alice in Wonderland, but he puts it on the old cartoon with the subtitles. And because it's on mute, I throw on Miles Davis Kind of Blue. All right, I'm going to tell you, that was one of the greatest memories of my entire life.
How long ago was this?
A couple of weeks.
Nice.
Maybe like a month ago.
Okay.
But Jesus, I'm telling you. Okay, so here's what happened. I'm watching her talk in Alice in Wonderland, like their mouths are moving, and I see the subtitles, but I'm hearing blah, 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 like horns going.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and it's like watching an anime dub where you're like, oh, that's what that means in Japanese. And so I'm just like, that's what that means in horn language.
Yeah.
Like, that's trumpet speak for I ate a cake,
Well, you sprung the mushrooms piece on your friend without telling him. This record, I believe, and in addition to many others, no rehearsal for the other fellas.
Yeah.
Just, here we go, 1, 2, 3, go. And that's the end result.
Man, it was... You absolutely, anyone has the chance to eat mushrooms, watch Alice in Wonderland, and listen to Miles Davis Kind of Blue. You absolutely need to do it. It is going to be the new Pink Floyd
Wizard of Oz.
Yes. Yeah. And it was fantastic. But I was like, oh, so he's playing these notes, but this is what she says he's saying. And it was a great trip.
Nice. So, often referred to as the definitive jazz album that towers over its peers.
Yeah.
We go from one of the most, for me, well-known records of all time to somebody I've never even heard of.
Yeah.
Shawn Phillips.
Did you look him up?
Of course. Collaboration, 1971. Fifth record of 20 for him. 12 tracks, 54 minutes. Who is Shawn Phillips, and how'd you get turned on to him?
This is a fun story.
Yeah.
I'm in high school. I'm not drinking. My dad's drinking. This is at my uncle's house. We're hanging out. I'm raiding my uncle's liquor cabinet, playing bartender. I get my dad sloppy drunk, making 7 and 7s. All right. We're in his van. We're going to go hang out. He gets pulled over by the cops.
Oh, no.
And he looks at me and he goes, all right, I'm going to hand you this pocket knife. This is your great-grandfather's elk bone native pocket knife. And he's like, and there's my box of CDs. Take both of them and keep them safe. And he went to jail.
For driving under the influence?
Yeah,
or
but
whatever.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is my sister's boyfriend came, met us, drove the van the rest of the way, and he's like, yeah, he might have been drunk. I'm sure he had experience driving drunk. I bet I was swerving all over the place because the alignment's off on that van anyways.
Well,
like,
for him to give you that and say what he said, he must have known he wasn't going home after that pullover.
Yeah, he's probably also pretty far behind in his child support.
Okay.
But, you know, but he gave me this box of CDs, and I was playing Super Nintendo and just putting CDs on. And I found a Shawn Phillips collaboration. I put it on, and... what the fuck? That's one. It's one of those albums I buy on vinyl, and if I find an extra copy, I usually find copies for like $8.
Yeah.
And I'll buy it and I'll keep the extras. And if anyone's starting a collection, I go, "You need this," and I hand it to him. This is the only album I've heard from by this guy.
Okay.
And my dad said he saw him play at the Uptown Theater, and he said back then it was set up like a nightclub, like dinner tables.
Okay,
you know how
sure.
like you imagine like a roast would go.
Yeah.
You know, and he's sitting there and he says, yells up during a quiet part, "Play Spaceman!" And Shawn Phillips turns to him and he's like, "The band I'm with on tour doesn't know that one, but cool." Like, but this album starts off with Spanish guitar, and it goes just everywhere. It's like jazz, it's Spanish guitar, it's just folk, and it's one of my favorite albums ever made.
It's lulling.
Yeah.
It's quiet.
Did you hear that part where he's going up these like vocal steps?
I don't know that I did.
And he hits this note that sounds like he's getting his testicles squeezed in a vice, and he goes higher and higher, and then he holds this note for like a minute and a half.
Wow.
You need to revisit it and really sit and listen
sure.
to it.
Yeah.
But that's an album that I get a lot of my friends into. And
I
they're
like that you do
"What is
that.
this?"
Snag
Oh,
extra
yeah.
copies and add them.
Oh, yeah. My wife does that with Fleetwood Mac Rumors.
Okay.
And
So
I
you
mean,
both buy vinyl.
oh, yeah.
So is the collection merged? Is it all?
So it's more mine, but it's equal. I think the only two albums in there, okay, there were 2 albums I was ashamed of, and now it's one, was ABBA and Captain and Tennille that I'm kind of ashamed of. But I've been getting into ABBA.
I love ABBA.
Like, after, look, here's the thing. You do enough psychedelics, you can drop that pretentiousness. And, you know.
Well said.
Yeah. And ABBA, they're fun. I still can't get into the Bee Gees.
Oh.
I can't.
I mean, that's like 5, 4, 5, 6.
Really?
Hey, that's one of the very first that I'm hearing as a young person going like, these are dudes?
Are
like,
they more of an album person? Because some bands, you hear their singles, but you sit and listen to their whole albums, and you're like, oh, no, the albums.
I could tell you that, you know, of the artists that I am the biggest fan of, like a Zappa, I more or less know his discography, and it's huge. Same with a band like Led Zeppelin. Many bands, I know all their albums. Now, I say that to say this. I love the Bee Gees and I love ABBA, but I've never gone beyond, say, a greatest hits or sought out singles. So I'm not the right person to answer whether or not their albums are.
We should challenge each other to look up the biggest Bee Gees album and both listen to it. I'll do it. I'm off tomorrow.
Okay. Nice. I like
Dude,
it.
My wife refers to me as a golden retriever husband because she could say, all right, I have errands to run. Get in the car, and I'm like, can we drink a beer? Can we go get beer? Can we drink beer in the car? What's the mood? What are we doing? Can we stop and get beer after this?
Right.
Like we need to throw some insanity into this adventure. But if we need to sneak you know, two tall boys and a Quick Trip cup and a card game and go to do laundry at the laundromat, I'm fucking down.
Right. So, you know, a lot of things on your list are fascinating to me, just in the sense of timing of us getting together. And David Bowie has come up already, and 26 records for him. I don't know that I would pass a final exam in David Bowie 101 freshman college course. I know enough to talk Bowie a little bit.
Interesting enough, one of my close friends, I'm trying to get him into Bowie, and I started off, and of course I'm going to skip like the first 2 albums.
Okay.
It's kind of like Radiohead. You don't introduce someone into Pablo Honey. You skip that one.
Right.
So, and then I'm going forwards, and he's like, I don't dig it. I don't know.
Sure.
So I start going backwards. I skipped his last album, and I showed him like I'm Afraid of Americans and New Killer Star and Pablo Picasso, and he's like, this is fucking great.
Nice.
And I'm like, okay, start with the 90s stuff and then go backwards, and then you'll love it. But Station to Station is hands down my favorite album by Bowie.
First of 2 off of your list, out in 1976. This one is in January. It's his 10th of 26, 6 tracks. 38 minutes.
And you're handing me these beautiful color glossies. What are you going to do with these afterwards? Can I keep them?
You can. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, this is so cool. I've done a podcast and I wasn't as thought out as this, but this is cool. I'm really digging looking at the album art.
This is my way of saying I wish I owned all of these actual copies, but I don't have that kind of funds.
Dude, I considered bringing a few albums over, but
it's too much to move them around.
Yeah.
And you also want to keep them out of harm's way and fall on the ground.
Dude, I'm a golden retriever. If I'm like, hey, I'm gonna take an Uber to your house and bring some beer and bring some records, if you're down with it and I got nothing to do, I'm on my way.
Sure.
I love people and I love hanging out.
You pointed your friend in a specific time and direction for him to take the leap into Bowie. Where did your leap start?
So I don't really know, but one of my best friends told me, you know, because Bowie's a legend, and I love a lot of musicians that are obsessed with Bowie. And so I just had to find the right songs. And so it was like, okay, I like Suffragette City, and you know, I like...
Bam, thank you, man.
God, that's such a fun song. So there's a band called Dream Car. Have you heard of them? Okay. So Dream Car is No Doubt, but instead of Gwen Stefani, it's Davey Havok from AFI.
Okay.
And they do like 80s new wave. And they covered Suffragette City on their new EP, and it's really good.
Nice.
But it's a fun song.
It is.
And, you know, I got a little bit in the Diamond Dogs. It took me a while to get into Aladdin Sane.
Okay.
Because the piano is very jazzy, and jazz is kind of weird for me. But he kind of told me there's 2 phases to being a Bowie fan. First phase is being really into Ziggy Stardust, and the second phase is being really into Station to Station.
Oh.
So, Station to Station.
I love me some Ziggy.
Dude, I do too, but Station to Station, he made this album. His diet was milk, peppers, and cocaine. Okay, he made this album in Berlin. And the thing about this album is after he made it, he was listening to it at a party. And he was like, oh, who is this? And they're like, this is your new album. And he's like, really? And they're like, yeah.
Not bad, huh?
And he's like, I really dig it. I was curious who it was. And the thing is I think he did enough drugs to tap into his subconscious. Like the whole what is it? The psychological
id, ego, and superego.
Exactly. Like, I think he finally punched through his ego to where he didn't go, what are people going to think? He just goes, what the fuck do I want to do?
Right.
And that's why this album, it's almost like he was possessed by something when he made it. And then he covered Wild as the Wind by Nina Simone. And hearing that song got me into Nina Simone.
Nice. Now, So what was your...
Hold on. And the song TVC 15
Yeah.
is about a mushroom trip that Iggy Pop had where he thought the TV was eating his girlfriend.
Oh, boy.
TVC 15. TV channel 15.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw that in there because I thought you'd appreciate it.
Sure. But what was your introduction to Bowie? Was it FM radio hits, or was there an album in particular that you first listened to?
I think it was probably because I'm of the MTV era. I was born in 85. I think it was probably I'm Afraid of Americans.
Okay.
And then getting into Golden Years was in the movie A Knight's Tale, stuff like that.
Cool.
You know, I don't know, but it was more than anything, why? Why are people obsessed with this guy? What is he doing? Why? And then, you know, I saw Wedding Singer, and they referenced Bowie in it for China Girl. And then I had a copy of the DVD of Ziggy Stardust, what was the movie he did where it was the concert for Ziggy Stardust? Was it Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars?
Might have been. Yeah.
Where he was like smoking a cigarette on the cover and it's like a burning Polaroid or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I think so.
I saw that and I was like, oh my God. And I got really into the song Oh You Pretty Things. That's off Hunky Dory. That's another album I absolutely love. You know.
Cool.
I don't know.
The question, people are really into Bowie. What is he doing? It's what isn't he doing? I think.
Yeah. So I was at a party one time, and it was probably around 2006, and I said, I like Bowie, but I don't like everything he does. And a girl came up to me and said, did you say you don't like everything Bowie does? And I'm like, yeah. There's some stuff I don't get. And she goes, honey, he's a chameleon. The only person that likes everything Bowie has done is David Bowie.
Right.
And so I took that as a very comforting blanket of, okay, I don't have to like it all. I can pick and choose.
Yeah.
And I pick and choose about Bowie.
No judgment. No judgment.
And then Bowie also produced Lou Reed for his, Walk on the Wild Side. What album was that?
I mean, there was a Walk on the Wild Side album, was there not?
It was, I don't think that's, I'm pulling up my phone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the two Lou Reed albums that he did. It was the Transformer album.
Oh.
It was Lou Reed, and if you listen, Bowie's doing backing vocals.
No kidding.
He's playing piano on it.
Okay.
And so you have that. And I think he worked on another Lou Reed album. And then, you know, it's just cool, the stuff Bowie works on. And then Bowie worked with Iggy Pop.
Sure.
And then there's a few really cool. You're familiar with that album, Transformer. Walk on the Wild Side's on it.
Oh, yeah.
And so is Perfect Day,
Yes.
Andy's Chest, Hanging Around, Satellite of Love. The whole album's fantastic. I also put it up there with T-Rex the Slider. That's another album that's fantastic.
Cool. Nice.
It's just going to be an hour and a half of me burped into a microphone, isn't it? I'm sorry.
You're good.
It's one of my 2 days off, and I'm just, you know, getting dishes done and hanging out. But also, Bowie produced a few albums by Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
And I have a live album where it's great because it was done in different cities, and it was Iggy Pop with David Bowie on piano and backing vocals, and a few of the songs is done at the Uptown Theater in Kansas City.
No shit.
I'll have to show it to you.
Nice. Very cool.
And so I'm like, shit, he's... And then, like, it connects to my history of being from Kansas City. Like, man, this is David Bowie and Iggy Pop in a theater that I've been in, and it's really cool.
Right. Where your dad hollered at...
Shawn Phillips.
Shawn Phillips at. So we stay in 76, and we move from January to October with Patti Smith Group's Radio Ethiopia. First of 3 for them, 8 tracks, 42 minutes. I know very little about her, but she seems rad.
Oh, dude, she is awesome.
How did you get into her?
I gotta really think about that. I read Please Kill Me by Legs McNeil, and I'm pretty sure it referenced her, and I was really curious about how she was famous and what she did. Let me tell you what Patti Smith did. She was a no-nonsense, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want to do type person. She wrote poetry and was influenced by 1500s Arthur Rimbaud.
Yeah.
She was super into Arthur Rimbaud and Bob Dylan.
Okay.
And she, when she first started doing music, it was a guy that was playing guitar while she was doing poetry. And he's like, what do you want it to sound like? She's like, I want to make it sound like a car crash. And I'm like, it's so fucking punk. But what she would do, she would go to CBGB's, she would chain smoke cigarettes on stage and read old poetry to punk rockers.
Really?
And then the movie CBGB, you see them throwing beer bottles and cigarette butts at her.
Oh, no.
And her smoking a cigarette and read poetry. And she's like, fuck you. You guys are cretins. You need to be educated. I'm trying to give you culture. I'm giving you art. This shit's beautiful. Like, open up your fucking brain. Like, what are you doing? And she's shit-talking them and being pelted by beer cans and cigarette butts. No, I'm going to read you this poetry.
Wow.
Like, and I'm just like, man, that's one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
For sure.
Like, she was just punk and a level on her own. I consider her to be like the female Jim Morrison.
Okay.
But also in the
like
other
that.
hand, like, yes, I compare her to Jim Morrison, but on the other hand, we also need to get to a point of evolution where we don't say, oh, that's the female of this guy. Like, she's still herself.
Well, but
she does remind me a lot. She's an American poet. They call her an American poet laureate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you can have a male counterpart reference point without minimizing the female other side to that.
Yeah.
And you know why that happens is, you know, we're a lot more exposed to Jim Morrison and the Doors growing up than Patti Smith.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I don't think that, you know, if it was the other way around, it wouldn't bother me if somebody said, you know, this Jim Morrison cat's kind of like the male Patti Smith.
Well, I'm trying to think about right now. I'm thinking about a female that I really respect, and I'm thinking about Debbie Harry, but I can't think of who the male Debbie Harry is.
Maybe Steven Tyler. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm just throwing that out there.
I'm going to have to take a bathroom break real quick.
Yeah, do it. All right.
Sorry about that. I had to take a bathroom break.
You're good. You're good. Can I get you? Do you want a water? Are you good with what you got over there?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
I drink it since I was 15, so I'm fine.
There you go. Nice.
If you want to split this IPA with
I'm
me,
good. I'm gonna work on this chai milk stout nitro from Left Hand.
How is it?
Different.
Yeah. It was. I appreciate when a company takes chances.
Yeah.
I've made my own beer before. It's just, you know, one's good enough.
Yeah.
It gets the idea through.
Yeah.
But I'll still continue to buy stuff from them.
Sure. So you know, a theme of late, the little blue can is recycling if you want to deposit. Big fan of firsts. Albums that haven't made.
Oh, wait a minute. Patti Smith. Want to talk a little bit more about her?
Okay.
Sorry.
You're good.
She has a great song on that album called Pissing in a River.
Yes, that was my favorite.
Oh, did you check that album out?
I checked all of these out, just, you know, not as thoroughly as
I hope it wasn't tedious. I hope you were like, oh no, this is fun.
It is. I mean, you know, time is tough to come by. But I checked out as much as.
Do you want first drink of this?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. As much of each of them as I could. And that was a fantastic. I appreciated this whole record, but I like that tune a lot.
Ask the Angels is a really great punk song. Ain't It Strange is one of my favorite songs ever. Poppies is a great spoken word track. Pissing in a River is one of my favorite songs. I think Ain't It Strange is my favorite song on that album. I have all of these on vinyl.
Nice.
But yeah, I absolutely love Patti Smith. I got to see her in Tulsa last summer.
Cool. Great town. I love not only that track, but the fact that she, it goes hand in hand with the story you told about CBGB.
Yeah.
The size of the ovaries on a gal to name a song, Pissing in a River, in 1979.
Okay. You might need to censor me, but on another one of her songs, she does the song Rock and Roll N-Word.
Okay.
That Marilyn Manson later covered.
Okay.
But it wasn't a racial thing. She was wanting to take the power out of the word and instead make the N-word.
Oh, I'm thinking direction inward, not like opposite of outward. I got you now. Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. We got it. Yeah.
In star. But yeah. And instead of the N-word meaning a person of color, the N-word was supposed to mean someone that was just an outcast. She has a song. In that song, it's like Jimi Hendrix was an N-word, Jesus Christ, and Grandma too. Like, it's really intense. It didn't age well. I always felt that on stage, one of the most harsh, cutting punk things I could do was cover this song, and I don't have the balls to do it.
Fair. So, from 1976, we skipped 4 years ahead to Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables, Dead Kennedys, first Dead Kennedys record to make a list on the podcast.
Really?
14 tracks, 34 minutes. Staples, icons of like just a 1980 is right where shit's really, we're coming out of the 70s. Album rock has been the drive, and now it's like, you know, Patti, people are doing like, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. Here's what I'm going to do. How long have you been into these guys?
Oh, since high school.
Okay.
My least favorite thing about them is their logo's terrible.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know, at least the Misfits logo looks really fucking cool on a shirt. The DK logo. But, you know, I've wanted to cover almost half this album. Kill the Poor? Oh, God, that's such a good song. Man. When you get drafted, Let's Lunch the Landlord. I've wanted to cover Kill the Poor and Let's Lunch the Landlord and Chemical Warfare. I Kill Children. That's a fun song. Ill in the Head, Holiday in Cambodia, Viva Las Vegas. Man, so unfortunately their song Police Truck got left off this.
Oh.
I used to cover that when we first started Johnny Switchblade.
I meant to ask what if B.A.T.S. the B.A.T.S. stood for something.
Burned at the Stake.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the origin story of that name?
So there's a bumper sticker I saw, and it said, last time we mixed religion with politics, people were burned at the stake. And you know what? Here's the thing. Religion is sacred to people, and I respect that. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know? I don't want religion mixed with politics.
Okay.
I would rather have a good politician and a religion that is not mine than a bad politician with an agreeable religion.
Okay.
Because when you're the president, you are supposed to represent all Americans, not the ones that agree with you.
Sure.
And so that's one of those things that, you know, I really believe.
Yeah.
And that's a good way. That's a good thing to say to people. I'm very left. I'm very liberal, which is fine. But I never want to be the complete opposite of the people that irritate me. So I make sure that I'm not so left that I'm irritating.
Okay.
Like,
that's,
you know,
fair. Totally fair. I get that.
I constantly question myself. Like, I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian. One of my close friends is a vegan for health reasons. When he went vegan, his stomach has felt better. He's lactose intolerant. I'm lactose intolerant.
Okay.
You know?
So milk, peppers, and cocaine wouldn't work for you?
I've been offered cocaine before, and I told the person that offered it to me, I said, you mean to tell me that I am someone who's never going to make good money and I'm impulsive? You're going to give me something my brain's always going to want?
Yeah.
I'm already spending too much money on booze and records.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
Give me beer and mushrooms.
Sure.
And that's really all I want in this world. Music. And, you know, I love my wife. She's fantastic.
Cool. Well, sorry, I sidetracked us there. Dead Kennedys. Did they?
So there's only
four?
3 musicians that have tremolo style vocals.
Okay.
Jello Biafra, Lux Interior from the Cramps.
Okay.
Can you guess third one? Love Shack.
Oh God.
Fred Schneider from the B-52s.
Okay.
The whole wavering style, you know, is really interesting. But it just, once you know that, you think of one, you're going to think of the other 2 forever.
Yeah.
But Jello Biafra is one of my favorite musicians, one of my favorite writers. I would absolutely love to meet him and just talk to him for 5 minutes. His parents educated him when he was young. Whenever they would watch the news, he would go, what's going on? And they didn't sugarcoat it. They'd go, these people want to do this, the other people want to do that, and they're fighting. And so Jello, being a food that's mass processed, with Biafra having to do with an African country where there was like a civil war going on. So he's so theatrical, and just, I absolutely love the Dead Kennedys. They might be my favorite punk band. The Misfits would be really close second.
Dead Kennedys made how many records though? Just like 4?
Probably 4. Plastic Surgery Disasters, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables.
And this was their debut.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I have an original pressing of this that I got from like Denmark. What's happening on the cover is it's a police car on fire.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I didn't know that until I read about it. On the back, they took a jazz band photo from a cheesy album and used that as their band photo. Okay. Thing is,
other people?
Yeah. They just went through someone's record collection and took a cheesy fucking band photo and put that on the back of their album.
Nice.
And those people sued them.
Oh.
So any pressing that's not like an early pressing, they're all decapitated.
That's an interesting way to get around it.
Yeah, they just cut the people's heads off.
Wow.
But
well, you mentioned the Misfits a couple times. We go from Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables in 1980 to another debut, Walk Among Us, first of 7, 13 tracks, 24 minutes. First half of a double dose of Glenn Danzig that we get from your list. Remind me what you said. Dead Kennedys versus Misfits. Who's going to wind up holding the favorite?
Dead Kennedys.
Okay.
Misfits are close.
Misfits are close.
I also think that Jello Biafra would be a more laid back dude. Okay, so that reminds me. I have ADD, so my storytelling is all over the place.
Same. So together, maybe we make it.
Fuck yeah. So there's a local band called the ODs. Stands for the Orange Donuts.
Okay. I
have their album. I'll let you listen to it.
Okay.
I'll bring it over, or you can come over.
Sure.
Whatever. They were written about in the book, was it American Hardcore? There was one sentence about Kansas City. Said if you were in Kansas City, you wanted to buy drugs, you would hit up the ODs and talk to Kurt. One of the best things.
Out to Kurt.
One of the best things in my life, musically, Kurt was a fan of the Johnny Switchblade.
Oh.
We used to have a song called "Let's Make a Drug Deal." He fucking loved that song.
That's awesome.
But it was a very deep dive lyrical song about someone ODing on the side of the road, like in an alley, an orphan finding, like a runaway, finding his stash and selling it, and then having his own downfall.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
And it was supposed to be a 3-part song, but it didn't ever pan out because our guitarist got murdered. We'll go into that.
You want to now?
So I had several issues, health issues, mental health issues. So something that happens, and trust me, I'm very pro-vaxxer. It's just me. My mom was a nurse my entire life. I trust doctors. I trust nurses. I know a lot of them. You can differ. That's fine. You know, you can put into your body what you know, but it's also like, grow your own food then. There's so many preservatives in food. You can't, like, you can't cherry pick certain things. But anyways, one of the side effects about being vaccinated is testicular pain. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had really bad pain, and I had sore grapes for a while after getting the shot. And
which brand did you get? Do you remember?
Shit, I don't remember.
There's Johnson and Johnson.
No.
And one that started with a P. I forget. Shit, I don't know.
I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't remember.
Matter. I'm just curious.
But yeah, and I had a best friend of mine who had testicular cancer. So here I am, depression, my meds aren't working, thought I might have cancer, and then I get into a bad fight with my partner. I already have problems with my own family. So I put on Pink Floyd, side 3 of The Wall, and I tried to take my own life.
Oh, Jesus, really?
I'm sorry. I'm an intense person. You've known me, 2 hours?
Yeah.
But I'm very open. I'm very honest. I'm very loving. I'm very bro-y.
Yeah.
But I was just like, this is time to go. And I just had so many things going on. And my wife, God love her, when she found me, stood by my side. She was like, we need to do something about this. I went and I checked myself into a hospital. And good Lord, there's so much neglect in the mental institutions. I could write a book about it.
Sure.
The amount of abuse and neglect I had in there. There were upsides, don't get me wrong, but they open the door every 15 minutes to check on you. And if you have problems sleeping, especially on a deflated raft in a wooden frame, like, good Lord, you don't have a shower curtain. It's just the amount of rights that are lost. And I can go back into that.
Sure.
The way the people treat you, the way they try to medicate you, and you're on new medications, and you don't want to bring COVID in.
So, but bring us back to your sore balls and your stabbed guitarist.
Yeah. Sorry. I can go on that tangent, but when I got out, my wife's like, hey, so a lot of people really love you and care about you, but I'm going to tell you this in the parking lot in case you need to recommit yourself. Daryl is dead. And I'm like, okay, what happened? She's like, he got stabbed to death. And I'm like, okay, by who? And she's like, his landlord. And I said, he had a landlord? And I thought he was living in the Red Roof Inn. And she was like, yes, he got stabbed by his landlord. He got stabbed 37 times by his landlord over a heating dispute. The story I know is he had a coworker, that house. The coworker was trying to flip the house. Okay. He said he would let my friend Daryl live at the house in the condition that Daryl would help him make renovations. It was in October. There was no heating. Daryl and his fiance were freezing. They were very cold. They didn't have a way to get a heater. They kept texting him to get a heater delivered to them or brought to them or whatever. And the guy was on vacation. He was irritated. He showed up, threw insulation at him, and said, you can fix it yourself or I'll kill you right now. Stabbed him 37 times with a hunting knife.
With a what?
Hunting knife. And he's being charged with second-degree murder.
This is how long ago?
I sent you the link. I think it was 2022 2022.
That's still pretty fresh, in my opinion.
It made national news.
Okay.
And then so even though Johnny Switchblade's broken up, every June or July, like one of those in the summer, we do a reunion show for Daryl's memory. He was a good dude.
Wow.
He was an asshole. He was a troll. But he was just such a good guitar player. He could play by ear.
Nice.
And just like, if you met him, you would be like, man, this guy's irritating. But it's kind of like a bratty kid brother.
Sure.
You know, he was brilliant.
Huh.
And I actually have a file I can send you that's a mushroom trip he recorded where he just talked for like 30 or 45 minutes while he was tripping on mushrooms and listening to music. And it's beautiful. And like, I kind of want to trip and listen to it and just like trip with my fallen brother.
Sure. Wow. Man, that is crazy.
And yeah, no, it's 37 times. I mean, you could have stabbed him one time less or one time more and made it an even number. And I'm sorry, because I'm not the only person to say that. But 37 is such an odd number. And then I got real close to one of his sisters. And she's like, hey, he was a good friend of yours. I want to talk to you. You know, I threw in a few songs for his funeral playlist. I just got out of the mental hospital. And thing about going to the mental hospital is you will make sure you'll never go back because you give up so many of your rights. The only thing you get to choose is what you get to eat. They
give you options there.
They took the drawstrings out of my pants.
Yeah.
I couldn't shave.
Yeah.
They did like bed checks. I wish they were more understanding about what people were going through, but I understand, and I can talk about that and how like it violates human rights.
Yeah.
Like there was one of the sewers backed up in one of the rooms in the hospital, and you know, like it smelled like pee for half the building. Like, and two people had to sleep in there. One of them was like a paranoid schizophrenic, and they were like, well, we'll have to wait for the plumber to get here. Like, you know,
man,
there's so many crazy things that happen. There's so many things that we can talk about, you know. Sorry for derailing things.
That's You're good. It's all good. That's how most of these conversations go. So, moving to 1989, Pixies Doolittle, second of 8, 15 tracks, 38 minutes. This one's been getting a lot of run here on the podcast of late. Yeah. Why is it special for you?
I just think the Pixies Doolittle is one of the best albums I've ever heard. I love it. I love Debaser.
Yeah.
But I love the lyrics and I love the bass line. Wave of Mutilation is one of my favorite songs ever, especially because there's two versions of the song. I Bleed. Here Comes Your Man is the first song that Black Francis or Frank Black wrote.
Okay.
He wrote it when he was a teenager. That bass line, it always reminds me of, what was that movie Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in with Zooey Deschanel? There was a...
I don't see a ton of movies.
Oh, no, dude, that's cool.
I see movies that I like often.
Fair. No, I don't judge that. Yeah. That's pretty smart. I think it's like 52 Summers or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
Monkey Gone to Heaven's okay. Mr. Greaves is one of my favorite songs. Lola Love You. There Goes My Gun. Hey might be my favorite. Hey and Gouge Away might be my two favorite songs on that album.
I mean, it's pretty much a no-skip album.
Well,
for me.
There's a very divisive Doolittle versus Surfer Rosa crowd.
Oh, I was not aware.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very big, but that's one of my favorite albums, and I put that on for a friend of mine. He was obsessed with it. I have it on vinyl, and it's so funny because everything you've handed me, I have on vinyl.
Nice.
But yeah, Doodle is the album that I learned how to play bass guitar to.
Very cool.
What's the next album you got?
Well, we go from a record I'm very familiar with in 1989 with Doolittle to one. That was a first listen for me, like many on your list. Danzig 2, Lucifuge.
That was the first listen for you?
Oh, yeah. Second of 12, 11 tracks, 49 minutes. And here's the second half of the Danzig that I mentioned.
Yeah.
But a Misfits record and a solo Danzig record, both earned spots on your list. What do you love about this one?
Okay. So the Misfits, I didn't like at first because the studio recordings are so bad. The quality is so bad. But once you can get into the fact that they can give you a good chorus and a good enough hook, just like, they're so good. But what's his face? The music producer, Def Jam. He saved Johnny Cash's career. Oh, God. Longbeard.
Rick Rubin.
Yes. Rick Rubin saw when, or Sam Hain, depending on how you want to pronounce it, Danzig's second band, and said, if you let me take you and cherry pick the other guys in your band, I can really do something with you. And then he made Danzig.
That's how Danzig was formed?
Yeah, Rick Rubin helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I have a lot of weird niche facts.
Share them all.
Yeah. But this album is fantastic. Long Way Back from Hell. My favorite on here is Snakes of Christ.
Okay.
Tired of Being Alive, Her Black Wings, 777, Blood and Tears, Devil's Plaything. Such a good album. It's very like dark Delta bluesy.
For sure.
Were you impressed with what you heard?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit of Danzig before, just nothing off of this record. And the one constant I can say from previous stuff I've heard to this is that I always appreciate the fidelity, the vibe, and the sound of his voice, and the most of the music that's going along with it is pleasant too. So yeah, I would say I was. Yeah.
It's really interesting stuff. A lot of people call him the evil Elvis.
Okay. Funny. Those. I have Modelo's and Miller Lights in the fridge out there, as well as waters. You're welcome to anything you want.
Can I have a water and a Miller Lite?
Absolutely. Let's go get you. So another first listen for me, 1994.
I like that I got you a lot of first listens.
Yeah, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Oh my God, you're new to Nick Cave?
Let Love In, yes.
Oh my God, he's so good.
8 of 18, 10 tracks, 48 minutes, including, I guess he's got one coming out in August of this year. What's the story with Nick Cave and how did you discover them?
I was really into the movie Scream.
Oh.
And when they announced that there's a curfew in the movie, they're playing the song Red Right Hand.
Oh, I thought that one was a little familiar.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
And so he used to be in a band called The Birthday Party.
Right.
They have 2 albums out. You want to come over? You want me to come over? I have both of them on vinyl.
Nice.
I am very social. I love people. I love hanging out with people, and especially so I have a thing that a challenge I throw out to my roommates. Go to my record room, pick 2 albums you've never heard, bring them out. Let's listen to them. So it's like pick stuff you've never heard, and we're gonna listen to it and like go through it.
Nice.
But, so it's funny. Nick Cave, when he was in The Birthday Party, they were street urchins. They were like homeless heroin junkies.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then he got on a tour opening for Bauhaus. Okay.
The goth gods, right?
Yeah. I saw Peter Murphy and David J. do a Bauhaus 40th anniversary show at the Truman a couple of years ago.
Nice.
Oh my God. It was incredible. Like they did all Bauhaus stuff. It was so fucking good.
That's awesome.
But anyways, yeah. Funny story is they were just playing like high school gymnasiums. And because Nick Cave is such like a like a bro, like a tough guy. They the last show, they tackled Peter Murphy from Bauhaus to the ground during Bauhaus's last song, and took a Sharpie and drew a dick on his chest.
Nice.
In the spirit of Australians, he's a good cunt.
Right.
But the birthday party was really interesting. It was like junky blues. It was good shit. I prefer the first album, Prayers of Fire, over Junkyard, but you know. And then I just got into this album, and I saw Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds a few years ago. The weird thing he does is he, as a senior citizen, walks out into the crowd, and they catch him with their hands, and he just walks into the crowd without even second guessing it.
Whoa, I would not do that. That's awesome.
I wouldn't either. But my wife we're in the balcony, and she's like, I don't know who these guys are. They're fantastic, but his fans might be in a cult. And I'm like, no, they're super fans. He hasn't been here in like 25, 30 years.
Right.
But yeah, it's really interesting, really heartfelt music. It's hard to explain. I love Nick Cave.
Sure.
What'd you think of it?
I enjoyed it. It felt like one of those that needs more than one listen to really
Out of what I tossed at you, was there anything that you were like, all right, he's fucking got me. He knows me. This is good. I'm curious.
Well, we're not finished yet.
No.
So 1 year.
I think we can do one more.
You got to go?
Soon, yeah.
Okay.
But I'll come back for 2.
Okay.
I can come back next week. Shit.
Let's just rapid fire. You give me. I'm going to give you the album. You give me a one-liner. Dear You, Jawbreaker.
Oh my God! I must wore that shirt today. Jawbreaker. God, they're 3-piece. They're punks. They're fantastic. Oh, do you want to do a part 2? I don't think I can rapid fire all these.
Let's give it our best because
right.
I'm booked.
Gotcha.
Far out as it stands right now.
So they broke up on the tour for this album. The lead singer and the bassist got into a fist fight. A lot of people thought that this is their sellout album. With this album, they were from the 3124 Gilmore scene, Gilman scene with Green Day and Offspring and all of that. But this album is really polished because he had polyp surgery on his throat. And so where everything else he did is raspy, this one's a little bit more clean. And they thought that he was a sellout, and it's one of the best albums ever. And they broke up in the middle of this tour. I saw this tour a few years ago when they actually did this tour over.
Nice.
And I saw them in LA. And the opening act was Lemonheads.
Oh.
And I hung out with Evan Dando, and he was shit-faced, and he did a shitty job, and he got kicked off the tour. But apparently also the lead singer from Pennywise was there, and Fat Mike from NoFX was at that show, and it was interesting.
Nice.
Next album.
Lonesome Crowded West, Modest Mouse.
Oh my God, I love this album. So everyone that's in the Modest Mouse, because of the Good News for a Bad News album, go back 2 albums before that. Lonesome Crowded West. Did you listen to it?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I was surprised that it was as different as the first one you just mentioned.
Yeah, dude. My favorite songs off this has to be Cowboy Dan. That song is the song I show to people when I'm like, no, you don't quite understand Modest Mouse. But Lonesome Crowded West is an album I have on vinyl, and I show to people all the time.
This might be my favorite from your list. In the Airplane Over the Sea, Neutral Milk Hotel. I feel like it fits on any list anywhere.
Was this new to you?
No.
Okay, good.
No, I love it.
Man. Okay, so my wife and I fell in love with this album.
All
right.
Is she like here?
She's not. I don't think she's here yet.
Okay. All right.
But
that's your line. Your wife and you fell in love to that album.
Okay.
The Fragile,
So
9
the
Inch
thing
Nails.
about In the Airplane Over the Sea is I was single for 20 hours. I dumped this girl I was going to take to a concert. The concert was Electric Guest, Alabama Shakes, Silver Sun Pickups and Garbage.
Okay.
All right. My wife was standing next to me trying to set me up with her friend who was cute, but wasn't really my type, just personality wise. We were into different things. And through that night, I spent more time with my wife, fell in love with her, and we went and she came and hung out with me. We listened to In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel, and we fell in love with each other over that album.
I love
That's one of my favorite albums ever. I'm obsessed with it.
Fragile. Fragile. 9 Inch Nails.
9 Inch Nails. This is the best album they've ever put out. It's the best one. Double album.
I like it.
Have you really listened to it? It's just
I listened to
genius.
it and the 3 other 9 Inch Nails that have made people's lists, and I've been impressed by all 3.
I honestly think this is their best one. He wanted to do the left side to be all songs with the vocals and the other side to be all instrumentals, but they had him intermingle it.
Okay. The lone EP from your list, No Effects, The Decline.
No Effects, The Decline. God, it's so good. That's
one track, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's one track, but as a bassist, like he's so good. And he stated in an interview I heard that he learned how to play through upstrokes and designate his own style. Like taught himself how to play. And it's so good politically, and it's, in my opinion, the best pop punk thing there is.
I love it. The Lioness, Songs Ohio.
Have you heard of that before?
No, this was the first. I'd never heard of them, let alone listen to this record. I like this.
He drank himself to death.
Oh shit,
Jason Molina.
Okay.
And a lot of his stuff that's not this album, but the other stuff, gets a lot of comparisons to Neil Young.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I can see that on a vibe level.
I'm pretty surprised that I forgot Neil Young, but Neil Young is one of my favorite musicians ever, and one of my favorite songs ever is Cortez to Killer.
That's a great one.
That is my favorite Neil Young song. It blows people away, but Songs Ohio, because I was writing songs when I was younger and the songs were so visual, I had someone that was like a big brother, big sister. He was a big brother. And he said, "Oh, your writing style reminds me of Songs Ohio," and he gave me this album.
Oh, I love that story.
I didn't really like it.
Oh.
And as I got older, I was able to get really into it because I was able to warm up to his vocals. And then it was, I love it. I have it on vinyl. It's one of my favorite things. And then funny enough, I ran into my mentor at Olive Garden like less than a year ago, and we were able to like reconnect. And I was like, thank you for giving me the confidence to actually be a musician, even though I'm a musician that not everyone gets.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we rounded out with a Lawrence act, Forearm Shiver, Something About My 20s.
Oh my God, you listen to that too?
Yeah.
What'd you think? It's okay if it's not your thing, but they're a 3-piece and they're very tight.
Yes, that is absolutely.
You should see them live.
They are.
Everyone that I made see them live was like, they're fantastic.
So they have a compilation and then this on their Bandcamp. So they're still around and active and ish.
Kind of.
Okay.
They're a band that I want to. I book a lot of shows with them on my path just because I want to see them for free.
Nice.
Like, they're super nice. They're good people. So the second show Johnny Switchblade ever played was with this band.
No way.
They went on after us and they humbled us. I was just like embarrassed by my hubris. Hubris?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not a word I use very much. But I was
It's a word that should only be pulled out from time to time.
I was like, man, I was so cocky, but I have to. Okay, so there's the me in real life, and there's the me on stage, and the me on stage has to be cocky to get over stage fright.
Fair enough.
And I saw them play, and I was like, my God, I don't fucking know. Like. They humbled me, and they always do.
Hey, that's a good thing, right?
If you ever get a chance to see them, if they keep playing, my God, I have this on vinyl, and it's really good. What'd you think?
I need another listen with it.
You're not gonna hurt my feelings.
No,
it's
no.
very like 90s pop punk, But the fact it's a 3-piece, how tight they play, my God.
Yeah. It was a great list. It was, arranged in this fashion, chronologically.
Yeah.
The last couple or three towards the end were getting less of my time because I was just under a crunch.
No, I hear it.
But it was a great list. I'm really grateful that you sent it to me, and I very much appreciate your time.
I'm very grateful that you actually listened to some of it.
Oh, yeah, man.
Dude, I'll always come out and be on a podcast. I think podcasts are cool. I listen to a lot of them anytime I can. But it's just like, man, the fact that I can throw albums out there that you're going to listen to that you've never heard. If you didn't like them, I wouldn't have been offended.
No, I hear you. But that's kind of the purpose. One of the main purposes of this is to, I know what I like.
Yeah.
What do you like?
But I also want to know what you like. Like, are you super into Boston? Because I hear a lot of people are. Are you into Van Halen? I can't get into Van Halen. I think they're a little bit like meh.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, we got to get you out of here.
Yeah.
And so again, Philip Clark, it was a pleasure to meet you. I super appreciate the time.
I hope we hang out again soon. I'll bring records over. You can come over to my house or whatever.
Nice. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you.